From across time and space and throughout the multiverse, listen as multiple generations of geeks come together to discuss the iconic characters, events, and franchises that make up the very fabric of pop culture as we know it. Let Your Geek Side Show presents Then and Now. Hey guys, this is Kitty.
And this is Sam.
I'm Brett.
And James.
And we are coming to you from the Sideshow Studios in Southern California. We're firing up multiplayer mode for this week's exciting podcast topic. With the biggest in video gaming news coming out of E3 Expo 2019 this June, fans everywhere were treated to updates about some of their favorite franchises, teases of the most anticipated new titles, and surprises that no one else could have guessed for the world of computer and console gaming. Were you plugged into all the announcements, conferences, demos, and streams? If you missed any of the excitement from the Electronic Entertainment Expo, join us as we recap the biggest, best, and brightest games and series that emerged from this exciting video gaming event. This is E3, Then and Now. All right, so since we got a little bit of a, as I joked before, a little bit of a multiplayer mode going on, I want to give everyone a chance to briefly introduce yourself and maybe tell us one of the games that you're playing right now. It doesn't have to be a brand new one, something notable. Who wants to start?
Oh, jeez.
Sam.
Don't all jump at once.
Go for
Me.
P2.
P2. All right. So I'm Sam. God, what games am I playing right now? I'm playing a crap load of Animal Crossing Pocket Camp. Like, I wake up, play that game, take a shower, play that game, go to the gym, play that game.
By crap load, I hear it when I wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
I'm playing it the whole time
Always.
I'm driving to work because we carpool.
I'll have the sound on my phone on, and it's like, I won't remember that it's on, so I'll start it. It's full blast, and I'm like, oh, crap. I immediately
And everyone's like, yep, Sam's playing Animal Crossing again.
Yeah, but outside of Animal Crossing, Pocket Camp, it's Yakuza, a little bit of Red Dead Redemption 2, like
Nice.
bunch of open world games. Yeah.
Very nice.
I'm Brett, and one of the main games I've been playing recently is Apex Legends. And it's been a grind because the Battle Pass ended today.
Ooh.
Yeah, so if you don't get, you know Battle Passes work. If you don't unlock everything in Season 1, you don't have a chance to go back and get it.
T.S. Eliot
So
is one of my old friends.
I woke up early to play this morning just so I can get it out of the way, and I finished like 20 minutes before I had to leave.
Nice.
It's like me with
Worth
Animal
it.
Crossing. It's like, you miss it, it's gone
Yeah.
forever.
Yeah.
I'm hating that advent.
Can you buy loot boxes in that game or whatever their
Yeah,
loot
you
system is?
can, but like you had to. I didn't pay for any, but you can buy up to level 100, and then past that it goes to like 110. You can't pay for like the super exclusive badges and stuff like that. So yeah, it was a grind. But yeah, other games I'm playing are Rocket League, and that's pretty much it right now. Yeah.
Cool.
How about you, James?
Hi, I'm
Right as you take a
I'm
sip of
player.
water.
I know. I'm James. I'm player 4 here on this podcast today. As far as games I've been playing lately, I finally picked Persona 5 back up. It's been 3 years in the making.
Yeah.
I bought it day one. I got the super deluxe pack. Got Brett here and all my friends into the freaking franchise, and then
You got Brett.
I got
me.
Sam and
you got our friend Alex.
And we
You got-
beat it before.
We all beat it before you even got up to Okamura.
I preached the good word, and then I took on some very severe freelance projects, and so
Hey.
it's just been sitting there staring at me.
No shame, no
Yeah,
shame.
a little more Ghana doll just staring me down, telling me to go to bed. But no, I finally picked it back up, and I beat Okamura, which is probably 3/4 into the game. It's like an 80 to 100 hour game, so
100 hours easy.
Easy.
yeah, it's a long one. So
gonna
I've
say-
been playing that.
Playing Joker in Smash doesn't count. So.
No, I know that does nothing for me. It's like. Yeah, and I've been playing a little bit of Chrono Trigger too. I've been deciding to pick up a lot of JRPGs lately that I didn't play when I was younger, so I'm like, I'm going to give this a shot.
The irony being, I'm only up to the part where you get, you first go back in time in Chrono Trigger. I introduced you to it, and you already beat it way before I did.
Yeah, I mean,
I have no idea.
Went on a trip to Hawaii, and when I wasn't swimming with turtles, I was playing Chrono Trigger.
All right, and you guys know me. I'm Kitty. I actually just I'm taking a little sabbatical from The Last of Us and Spider-Man because I just finished both of those pretty recently, and then I'm gonna give it a few and hop back into the DLCs because I've got all the Spider-Mans waiting for me, and then the Left Behind section of The Last of Us. But I'm super stoked on that one. But recently, I had a chance to do the beta access for a game called Rocket Arena. It's not Rocket League, but it's like the Nexon It's kind of like Smash Bros meets Overwatch meets everybody gets a rocket launcher.
Yeah, I think I saw. One of the streams
it was
I watched was had a sponsored stream for that, and they were playing with it. Yeah, that looks interesting.
And they were at E3. I know. So the beta build only had 6 characters, but it was super cute, super fun. Nobody dies. You just get like concussion blasted out of the arena, but then you just fly back in. And so that was really fun, and I'm looking forward to the full release of that. But in the meantime, I'm playing Pillars of Eternity 2. I got that. And I'm messing around with all the Critical Role voice actor line packs that they added, so my character talks
DLC.
That's fun.
Yeah, so my character talks like one of the Critical Role characters. But so today we're going to be discussing E3 recently. I know it's a little weird because it is the Then and Now podcast, and we'll give you guys a brief history of some of the origins of E3 and the more recent years.
That's all James.
But really, the biggest then and now is like, what do we know now that we didn't know then that was announced all at the 2019 E3? Because there was a lot of stuff. So E3 first started in 1995. It was called the Consumer Electronics Show, CES. But that means, so it was 24 years ago, so that means next year is number 25, so that's going to be a big one. Is there anything you wanted to add about it?
It was part of CES? 'Cause
It was.
No.
Yeah.
Well, so technically it was like in CES, they basically had this whole back section devoted to video games, and then it pretty much became such a big medium that they're like, we're tired of being given the back room for this expo, so they made up their own. And I think it was around the time when the Mortal Kombat game rating scandal happened, and so a whole association was formed, and they decided to create this expo that it was dedicated only to video games, basically. And so that's how E3 started.
Yeah, and for a while, it was not open to the public, if I remember correctly. I think 2017 was the first year they started.
2 years ago.
2 years ago was the first year they did public passes.
Yeah.
2013 was when Nintendo started doing their direct recorded, right?
Yep.
And then this year was the first year that Sony didn't attend. So... Pretty interesting milestones all across the years, but...
Yeah.
They did try this one thing previously. It was something you and I went to. It's called E for All.
Yeah.
That's cute.
It was like 2007.
It was like a very much condensed version of E3, but it was open to the public. And it's not around anymore because you can kind of tell how successful it was. But it was cool going in there. Because what did we play? Brawl?
Yeah, we played Super Smash Brothers Brawl before it came out, which was really exciting.
And I think, too... Funny enough, we were there alongside, I think Penn and Teller were filming an episode of one of their shows. And you can actually see me in the background looking like a goober while somebody's getting interviewed. I'm just staring at a game, blank face. And it's
But how beneficial for them to open it to the public, I think especially as gaming has changed and while we do still have consoles and physical media, a lot of people are moving to the digital editions and what can you bring to the digital side of things. But also, so many games now have a photo mode because the photo mode isn't going to get people to commit to the game if they weren't necessarily interested. But the social media sharing aspect of it, you see, I couldn't play the Spider-Man game for a couple of weeks after it came out because of personal obligations. But watching everybody with their damn Spider-Man selfies, I was like, I have to play this game. I have to take a selfie in front of the Sanctum Sanctorum. So it's interesting the way that they're shifting things up, and I think bringing the public into E3. I know it is an industry trade show, and that is an important aspect, but ultimately these games are for the consumers.
Yeah. And it's when you allow, the consumer end, people to come in, it's more the exposure is a lot greater because you have all these influencers from YouTube and all these people that genuinely love games. There's no, agenda behind it. They're just going there to play it and to share it with everybody that, is also a fan.
That's where they get immediate feedback too.
Yeah.
Just regular Joes being like, I like this game. I didn't like this game.
If regular Joes have anything, it's a lot of feedback.
Gosh, this was the year of fan feedback. There were time and time again, we saw all these different developers and publishers outright say, hey, we've completely changed this game from the ground up because of feedback we've gotten from you. And I think there's a lot more power on the consumer end than there ever was.
Yeah, and it's also interesting that you bring that up. I'm going to use that to segue into our Nintendo segment with, I'm stealing it here, Animal Crossing, because that was one of the things that they noted is that they delayed the release time of the game in order to compensate for the developers having more time, because in this culture there's also the idea of the crunch to get it out to the consumers at the same time, but that can lead to the developer teams having really insane deadlines. And so when Nintendo announced that for Animal Crossing, especially for a game as lighthearted and joyful as Animal Crossing, I was like, you take all the time you need to bring me that joyful little world.
Yeah, I mean, that's a very classic Nintendo thing to do. I followed a lot of their games over my lifetime, and I've noticed that more often than not, they actually do delay the game either a quarter of a year, half year, full year. And there's actually a quote from Miyamoto, gosh, it must have been in 96 or 98, and he delayed, I believe it was either Mario Sunshine or Mario 64. And the quote more or less goes, in gist, a game that is released early and not complete is bad forever, but a game that is delayed has the potential to be good.
I was going to say, because if it was Mario Sunshine is bar none my favorite Mario game ever, so I don't care if they delayed it, because I still played it.
I think it was 64, because I was going to bring up, they did the same thing with Ocarina of Time. Mm-hmm. Like, Ocarina of Time, for the longest time, didn't even have a title. And it was just like, oh, it's a new Zelda game that's coming out. And they delayed it, like, for years. It didn't come out until 99, and it looked like a game that was 2 years, like, late. Or, like, it looked like a game that should have come out 2 years earlier. But it's like, it came out, and it was as good as it is. Like, we're still talking about it to this day.
Yeah.
It's crazy, because, I mean, those were 64 and Ocarina of Time, the first 3D versions of those franchises. So, yeah, they were so hesitant to just get it out there, because that's...
Gotta make it work.
But I mean, this also comes after, a lot of the stuff that came out with Rockstar after Red Dead 2 and even previous games where it's like, and sometimes it's inevitable, I'm not pointing any fingers or anything, but it's like, when it comes down to that crunch, like a lot of people are putting in tons and tons of overtime, and I think it's really nice to be considerate, especially in the Japanese workforce culture. It's very considerate to be willing to delay a game that much just to give everybody the appropriate amount of time to work.
Because ultimately, once the game gets into the hands of the players, like the quote said, you only remember the play experience, and if it's a half-assed play experience, you're going to remember that, and that's and in this culture where the word of mouth and the social media sharing is so important, unfortunately, just a couple bad words could forever taint people's visions of that they're like, oh yeah, that one, it's incomplete. Yeah. It's a broken game.
And there's also games that were talked about at the E3 that suffered that over the last year.
Oops.
Which they're trying to make amends now and pushing it forward, which I'm sure we'll talk about later.
Trying to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But Animal Crossing.
New
Horizons.
Oh my goodness. I would just, every time that I'm like, okay, I've had the house and I've paid off the mortgage. I've been the mayor and I paid off the mortgage. What next? And they're like, you get a whole island.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nintendo.
I just wonder at what point is it your island and not Nook's island?
Right.
I'm a little questioning his motives there.
See, I'm
the ever
I don't play Animal Crossing.
Really?
Yeah, not for me.
Man,
it's so good.
Now, are you thinking there's going to be any Pocket Camp compatibility in any fashion?
Man, okay, so I really, really, really hope so, because Pocket Camp is so much unlike the original GameCube version of Animal Crossing. It's so much unlike Animal Crossing New Leaf that came out for, I think it was just the
3DS.
3DS, yeah.
3DS. Yeah, Wild World was the DS one.
Yeah, like it's Pocket Camp. Like there's crafting elements. There's I don't want to say RPG elements, but it's like each villager has their own specific like crafting material they can give to you. They have their own specific. It's what they're called essences. It's like, oh, this person's like a natural villager. This person's like a sporty villager.
Oh, cool.
And based on how
and
many
this
times...
one's posh and scary and baby.
Exactly.
So like Tangy, which is like the orange cat for the listeners that aren't aware of the Animal Crossing series, she has all like citrus furniture. So is that like
She's
the
not
essence
in the game
she
yet.
gives you? What?
She's not in Pocket Camp. No, Tangy and Anka, they're not in it yet.
Oh my
Those are
gosh.
my two favorites. But there's a ton of other ones.
Tangy won Nintendo.
But I was going to say, because I don't think we mentioned it, Pocket Camp is a mobile game. So Nintendo has branched into mobile games, and of course they've got their Switch, which is an absolute powerhouse, which makes me sit at my Wii U and say, I wish you were something cooler. That was the awkward stepchild, and I didn't know that the Switch was coming, and I went for that one. But I think, first of all, Nintendo, more than a lot of the other, and everyone has their franchises, but Nintendo is the house of these like iconic franchises that don't deviate. Everything from Nintendo is a Nintendo story. But Nintendo's conference also proved, or their Direct also proved, that like not every game has to be like a AAA tier. Because we also got Luigi's Mansion 3, which
Stoked.
I'm excited about that.
I'm very excited to play as Gooigi.
Gooigi.
The slime embodiment of Luigi that allows a second player to join in.
Yeah, and then they adding the multiplayer elements and crafting elements to Animal Crossing. They're Nintendo's changing the formula, but it's still all the same stuff that we love.
Yeah, and actually between both Animal Crossing and Luigi's Mansion, I like that 8-player multiplayer is now becoming the standard for local and online play on their games. It just seems like there's a lot of potential there. Actually, speaking with Luigi's Mansion 3, beyond the main story, there's multiplayer modes that do like randomly generated levels on each stage. It's kind of like a roguelite in that regard, but you could play it with up to 8 players and like complete each level as you go up these skyscrapers and these hotels that are randomly generated. It looks really, really fun.
Yeah. Another Nintendo had so much, so we're going to briefly touch on what we can. But one of the things I'm most excited about from them is their Zelda Link's Awakening, because that, as we talked, that Ocarina was one of the first 3D jumps into for Zelda. This is a 3D-ization, version now of the classic Game Boy games.
It's got that like depth of field look too, huh?
Yeah,
it's really sweet.
Yeah, and Nintendo's been really good about also doing their 3D models that have like a texture. I mean, they've got the Yoshi's Woolly World and even the Paper Mario stuff, like giving the depth of field and the perspective that you're playing a game, but it's set in like a toy box world kind of. Yeah. But I'm excited because my fingers are crossed. Actually, I'll save that for the end because at the very end, we're gonna talk wish list of games. But because of what they've done with the game engine for Zelda Link's Awakening, I'm hoping for some other stuff. And then, of course, Pokemon continues to evolve, and it's taking some cues from another game that is getting a sequel, Breath of the Wild. Some of that open world.
Such a shock.
So, yeah, I didn't finish Breath of the Wild, but after watching that trailer, I'm like, I need to go back because it was a lot darker than I never even expected a sequel. But after watching that, I'm like, what the heck are they doing? And I was like, I'm hooked. I gotta go beat this game, and I'm ready.
I have not beat Breath of the Wild either. It's on my Wii U, my sad little Wii U. But I'm like lost. I love the open landscape, and it's such a cool deviation for the Zelda franchise, but I am straight up lost. Like, I can't find it. I found one of the divine beasts. I can't find the other 3.
Which one?
I found the elephant.
The elephant?
Yeah. So I hung out with the fish people, but like I cannot find the others. And
you need that guy to just like point you like straight there.
Is it like a case of like you haven't played it in so long that you've forgotten where everything is?
It's a case of I keep trying to traverse the landscape and it takes me a long time. I've got a horse, but I keep running into those the guardians, the big big octopusy things. Yeah, those are the worst. Those are the worst. And every time I think I find
piano cues come in, and he's like, jump behind the rock. Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I try to take the long way around, but the long way is even worse because I like run off of a cliff and I'm down in the. It's just whatever. But I will try to finish that game because I didn't expect that one to get a sequel from all of what I know of my friends finishing it. But like, if anyone can do that atmospheric storytelling with even so little dialogue, because so many of the protagonists are silent protagonists, that one's just insanely exciting.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool speculation going around about that game, about how it's like similar to Majora's Mask Ocarina of Time, where it's like a darker sequel that may even... So Majora's Mask did a thing with time, and it really limited what you could do.
Yeah,
and I'm thinking that because it's underground, you're in this tomb, it looks like it might take the approach of it may just be a huge dungeon labyrinth that you can explore. And, because Zelda took such a huge part in that trailer, people are even assuming that there could even be maybe co-op, or you could play as Zelda.
When Breath of the Wild concept art first came out, people noticed that Link was... The art for Link was slightly more effeminate because there was longer hair and the features were softened. And so many people have been hoping that you can play as a female protagonist. If it's not Zelda, then some version of that. So I hope...
Give us a female Link.
The players were very vocal about that. And I think they're, more than ever, Nintendo and a lot of these game publishers are much more receptive to those types of feedback, and so it's really exciting to see where it'll go.
I'm looking forward to it. Another one that I'm excited about, but we don't really have to talk about, is Ultimate Alliance. That I've got the first 2 Ultimate Alliances, but some of the characters they've announced for this one is just so much fun. I think because Marvel now can take such small, like Guardians of the Galaxy, Ant-Man, those were not household names. Now they are household names. So, like, in the trailer, what I was excited about is they introduced Elsa Bloodstone, and she's, like, a criminally underutilized, because people love Deadpool because he swears and he's funny and he blah, blah, blah. Elsa Bloodstone comes from a family of monster hunters, and half of her dialogue is usually blocked out because she's swearing so much. Like, so I was just super excited that they can take characters like that and put those into their games.
Is she the one that's attached to Luke Cage in some way, or she's just her own character?
She's her own character.
Okay.
There are other Bloodstone characters in the Marvel universe. You're not thinking Jessica. She was in not Jessica. She was in the trailer with Luke Cage.
That's why.
But
I saw that and I'm like, is she with?
No,
Cage
she actually did team up with Jessica Jones in a comic, but that's a story for another time. But like, so Nintendo kind of crushed it with a lot of their updates. I think that was one of, and they were kind of pretty late in the week for E3. Anyone have any other Nintendo? Because I mean, Pokemon was also big, but I mean, that one, a lot of news for that came out before the conference. This was just more of an update for it.
Yeah, I mean, I think touching back on Link's Awakening just a teeny bit, it's really cool to see that they're taking these games that were so beloved in an earlier generation, and I actually never got the opportunity to play Link's Awakening, and I know that a lot of people that are younger also probably have never played these games, so it's really cool that they're taking these games that were very popular at the time and kind of transforming them, adding new features to it, and experimenting with new looks like they are doing with that Yoshi franchise. So it's really cool to see where they're going with that.
Yeah.
And I mean, as far as Nintendo goes, the new Fire Emblem game looks awesome. They're taking the best of both worlds between Game of Thrones and I think Harry Potter, where you start out as an instructor and you pretty much train your whole battalion in school because you're their instructor. And you can like meet at the Great Hall and like eat with them and form these connections, and then it jumps 5 years and then you're in the thick of it, and it's these three houses that are warring with each other, very similar to Game of Thrones. That game looks super fun. And it comes out in July too, it's not that far out.
Ooh, that's exciting.
It's actually another game that comes out not too far from now. It comes out in like August, 30th? Yeah. It's Astral Chain. It's being developed by I forget what the studio is. It's Platinum.
Right?
Yeah. It's being headed by the guy that was the what is it? He's the game designer for Nier Automata. His name's Takahisa Taura. It's cool because it's like it looks like a tokusetsu, I think is the name. It's like Kamen Rider. What is it? Kamen Rider, Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, Sentai, like that kind of style of thing where it's like they're posing and blah, blah, blah. It's that mixed with like this cyberpunky type of thing where it's like everybody has this physical chain that chains them to this thing called a legion, or at least these police officers have this thing that chains them to this thing called a legion, and they're fighting these monsters called chimeras, and it has like that same sort of like wonky fighting gameplay that Nier Automata kind of has. And yeah, like I keep seeing it everywhere and I'm like, this looks like a game I'd be like really into. And yeah, I didn't realize it was coming out on the 30th until E3, and I'm like, I might actually get that game. And it's a Switch exclusive, which is a crazy thing too.
Yeah, the Switch is getting a lot of unique, very obscure exclusives. There's also Daemon X Machina, which is like in short, it's like a mech game where you design your own mech, you make your own character, and you basically do these huge like battles with these monsters and other robots that are kind of invading Earth, or so it seems. And there's a demo out for right now too that you could check out. That's
very cool.
On the Nintendo Switch.
Haven't heard of that one at all.
Yeah, I saw them playing it a bit on their live streams over the event. It looked pretty cool.
And now I'm feeling pretty silly for investing in the Wii U.
We've all done it, right? Or live as well.
Last thing before we move off of Nintendo, I know that it'd be a crime if we didn't mention, but there were some cool DLC or character DLCs for Smash.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah.
Got that rare fake out with the
K. Rool and the Duck Hunt dog.
Yeah, that was pretty funny.
You've got Banjo-Kazooie in Smash Brothers.
And the Dragon Quest hero, which that'll be interesting to see how because I'm sure it's kind of like there'll be alternate skins, but it looks like it slightly affects not the moveset necessarily, but the weapons that the characters are outfitted with.
Yeah.
Here's the crazy part. Those characters from Dragon Quest are all designed by Akira Toriyama. It's crazy to think that an Akira Toriyama character made it into Smash Brothers and it wasn't Goku first.
Well, now you get 4 Goku.
No, yeah, but everybody I see like on all these message boards I'm on now, they're like, okay, so Dragon Quest got in. When's Goku?
No.
Dragon Quest, Dragon Ball.
Yeah.
But their moveset looks really cool, though, because, I mean, there are a lot of, between Fire Emblem and Legend of Zelda, there's a lot of sword-wielding anime characters, and it seems like their moveset is very unique, similar to kind of how they did with Cloud and Joker, where there's actually like a pop-up menu, and you have mana, and you can cast spells, and I don't know how customizable the spells are, but I think there's at least 3 or 4 different spells you can use with that one special move. So it looks like there's a lot of cool potential for what they're doing with these new DLC characters.
Yeah, that's pretty exciting. Nintendo just kind of smashed the rules on that one. That was an unintentional pun that I walked right into, and I was like, I gotta commit. So we are moving on from Nintendo. So Sony was notably absent this year, but Microsoft talked, kind of their biggest thing was about hardware rather than the software.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised by that they decided to take that approach.
Project Scarlet. And that's like Scarlet spelled in a fun and edgy way, right?
2 T's.
2 T's. Scarlet.
That means it's 2 terabytes.
Oh. Solid state.
Yeah, there we go. We got your number, Microsoft. We figured it out. But I mean, one of the standard things that I'm always down for is another Lego game. They're going to do the entire Star Wars Skywalker saga for the Lego Star Wars.
Oh, wow.
But Microsoft had a very weird and out of left field announcement with Blair Witch.
Yeah. I've not looked up much else outside of what we've gotten in the trailer, just because not much else has come out about it. Mm-hmm. But it was interesting because it's like the trailer starts, if you guys haven't seen the trailer yet, the trailer starts and it's just a fellow with a video camera, like he's just running from something in a forest, picks up a video camera and starts... scared right now. Yeah, and it's like you start getting this feeling as you're watching it, it's like, this is familiar. I feel like I've seen this. And
beat the final level by standing in a corner, right? Like,
it all kind of hits you when he turns and you see the person standing in the corner and it's like, Blair Witch? Like, what? Like... It's interesting. It's interesting. I really want to see what I really want to see what they do with that game.
I'll give anything a chance, and they made very clear to show that you can pet the dog in the game.
Oh my God.
Which is a growing concern among gamers. But that was interesting.
Concern.
It's a wholesome concern. It's important. But it was very funny because the developers were even talking, like, people at the show were like, you've got a Blair Witch shirt. That's cool. I love that movie. And they're like, no, it's a game. Like, but that's fascinating. I mean, because I think one of the biggest contingents, I mean, YouTube gamers will play anything, but I think one of the biggest contingents for YouTube gamers is horror stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Because there is that beautiful voyeuristic experience of being like, I'm too afraid and I can't afford the game right now, so I'm going to watch someone else scream on a webcam while they play it.
Especially when they're in VR, it's hilarious.
Yeah. All my younger cousins always introduce me to what the new horror games are when I hang out with them in the summers.
I would argue, like, the rise of streaming in general is a straight-up response to games like Amnesia: The Dark Descent, which came out in, 2011, 2010?
Definitely.
And it's like everybody would watch people, like, do live streams or Let's Plays of Amnesia, and it's like, that's what sold Amnesia, was people getting so freaked out by, like, the tense atmosphere and stuff like that. And it's, horror games definitely just, like, will always have, like, people's attention just because of, like, watching somebody scream is hilarious.
Video games are just the perfect medium for it because it's not a passive experience anymore. Yeah. You're in it and you have to make choices on the fly and survive.
That's why people still talk about PT too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
PT was a great example of that.
I still have my PS3 with it on.
I wish I still had mine.
It was even funny when I was going through the BioShock franchise, my dad would say, could you, like, wait for me? Like, it's like, even when it's like, don't watch ahead of me in a show, he's like, could you wait for me to get home from work so, like, I could watch you play through the next level of BioShock?
Oh,
like,
that's
because he was
awesome.
so into watching. But there's always that, like, hubristic element as well where someone's like, I'm not the one controlling it, but I think I could do slightly better. But then there's also the part of you that knows, like, oh no, I'd be just as useless. I mean, I've come a long way. Left 4 Dead is one of my favorite games ever, but I was so scared when I played the first Left 4 Dead that this was my mistake. I turned off all audio cues and I would play it on mute and I played with the subtitles.
Say what?
But there were important cues in the game that I would miss because I wasn't hearing the music, but I was too scared, and so I was just like, I was practically useless. But I'd like to believe that I've come a long way, but I still will just mostly watch. Like, can't do Five Nights at Freddy's. I'll watch people watch. Watch people play that and make fools of themselves.
Did you ever play with friends though?
Not really.
Oh, man.
I was gonna say a lot of my
That
friends
game really shined as a multiplayer game.
Yeah, a lot of my friends were mostly it was Pokemon. That was me. All my friends were Pokemon. But yeah, no, it's all that fun stuff. But it's like I would prefer to watch someone else do it.
Yeah, for sure.
That one will definitely be. I think that one will be the new big streaming one when Blair Witch comes out. And I mean, Microsoft also had Halo Infinite, Gears 5. Any other huge ones that jump out? They've got more Minecraft.
I think it was the Microsoft bit where they introduced Cyberpunk 2077, right? Was that the
Xbox?
That was
Project
Project
Xbox
Red.
with Microsoft. Yeah.
Project Red.
And there's a little somebody in that game.
A little certain somebody.
A little certain somebody. Maybe you've heard of him.
Wait, were Xbox and Microsoft, were they two separate things?
No.
Oh, yeah.
They're together.
Yeah, I think on our list, though.
Yeah, on our list they
okay.
seem to be separate because Project Red also had The Witcher.
Yeah,
stuff
so you're right.
I don't know, I was going to say, in not gaming, Microsoft announced Gears Pop. Like that was
the mobile game, right?
Well, there was a bunch of Funko stuff that came out like in collaboration with some of the games as well.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So yeah, no, it's interesting to watch people branch out into like the mobile and then the auxiliary like gaming and gaming accessories. But did we want to jump? Did we want to jump over to Cyberpunk? Because that was a pretty big.
I know that was like the thing in the Microsoft.
I mean, just one real quick thing about the Xbox conference was that, and Nintendo did a little bit of this too, but I really dug how they were giving a little more spotlight to independent games.
Yeah.
And it was cool to see that Nintendo also had live streams of these independent games. And so you're like, oh, I heard about this, or I don't know much about this, and you could just check in and watch people playing it and explaining how it works out.
Yeah, because I think there is a merit to all these franchises that are either getting remakes or new installments of the franchise, but if we only continually do the remakes and stuff, where's the room for the new and innovative stuff? I mean, everything is innovative as the programming continues to advance and stuff, but it is cool to see. Yeah, like come out of nowhere with Blair Witch. Sure, okay, I didn't think that could be a game, but like you've convinced me. I think it's.
I'm surprised nobody thought of that sooner.
Yeah,
making Blair Witch a game.
Yeah, especially because I'm thinking like, what's the game? Fatal Frame? Is it anything where you then have to have another layer of yourself separated from the game by using an auxiliary device. A lens that clouds your vision. It shows you what it wants you to see. Like, so that's even more fun in the world of psychological horror. Just to put you, the player, behind yet another screen, even though you're playing from behind a screen, and you're like, oh my god, what's real and what's not.
It's another horror game that people still talk about.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So, what other big ones do we want to talk about? I know the next one of the ones that broke my Twitter feed was Final Fantasy VII from Square Enix.
Yes.
And also I'm going to put my foot down and I will call them Square Enix for the duration of this podcast. Though there is hot debate whether it's Enix or Enix. If you have an opinion, please email us. Final Fantasy VII. That the only Final Fantasy I've ever played, I think, was 14, the online one, MMORPG. So I'm not that familiar.
About that too.
Yeah, I'm not that familiar with the other 13 before that.
So, I mean, Final Fantasy VII is considered one of the greatest. But I think between Final Fantasy VII and 6, people debate which one's better. But this is like classic turn-based RPGs. And the remake looks amazing. It's funny because the first thought of remaking 7 appeared in E3 2005.
Really?
They showed a tech demo for PlayStation 3, so before, when PlayStation 3 was being announced and stuff. Yeah. They showed a tech demo. Everyone got excited. They're like, oh my gosh, they're remaking the greatest game of all time.
To my
and
knowledge.
then he comes to the podium, he's like, we have no plans to remake it. They showed a trailer, and then they said, we have no plans to remake it. So
was it where they just showing off what the PS3 could do as far... They did that shot, right, where it pulled back from Ares, and it was just like, whoom, look at Midgard.
It was falling the whole intro from the original 7.
That's rough.
Well, you gotta believe that they used the feedback from that to go, well, maybe
petitions,
we should.
People have been all over it.
You'd think, but for the longest time they were like, no, we're not coming out with it, guys.
15 years later, we're getting it.
Yeah.
And I was always worried about, them moving on from turn-based. And I played, Final Fantasy 15, which it tried to do something new with the combat. It was fun. It just became more of like a button masher. But it was an enjoyable game. But I was worried how they were going to handle it in 7. Were they just going to put that battle system in there? But it looks like they're merging turn-based with it, so you can play whichever way you want. So you can pause time, select a command, you can switch characters. Like it looks pretty rad, yeah.
Wow. I was saying, I know the graphics have certainly gotten an upgrade. I just know mostly polygonal versions of the Final Fantasy characters, but that's exciting.
Yeah, no, it looks really. I highly recommend. I mean, you might as well just wait for this one.
Yeah, that one completely destroyed my Twitter feed. I mean, everybody was just screaming, and I learned which of my friends like Aerith better and who likes Tifa. There was some very hard lines drawn in that sand.
Yeah, it's a debatable subject.
But it was really, really cool to see.
There's no debate because Yuffie's the best.
Ooh, a new contender has entered the ring.
I mean, she's an optional.
I know.
But I have to wonder, which one is the Final Fantasy?
Well, I mean, it's ongoing. But,
it's ongoing.
But I would say, I mean...
There is a reason for that name, by the way.
There is a reason they're remaking 7. I'm not saying it's the best, because I really do. 6 has one of the best villains of all time, Kefka. But 7, this was the first RPG I ever played. I grew up watching my dad play it, and then I went and played it myself, and I was just blown away. I think I was like, 12 or 13?
Yeah, cool.
And I was blown away. And this was, like, the story's pretty complex. Like, it's pretty insane. The characters are so awesome. But I played it at such a young age that I probably didn't understand all the themes that they had a lot of political themes, a lot, so many, like, relatable to the real world themes. And I just can't imagine playing it now, like, trying to view it through,
Man,
everything.
Yeah.
At that scale, at that expansive scale, I mean, this game is like, I think is going to be a 3-parter the way they're releasing it now?
I think
3 or 4?
Three, I don't know if they can do it in 2, but supposedly the first part is going to be 2 discs.
Ooh.
2 Blu-ray discs.
2 Blu-ray discs.
That's how big this game is going to be.
It's only going to take place, the first section of the game takes place in Midgar. Which is, kind of like the city. It's the first city you're in, where Shinra is this corporation who they pretty much run all experiments. Think of like super controlling, like elitists.
Yeah.
They do all that stuff, and they extract energy from the planet and stuff like that. Do like human experiments. So they're kind of like the bad guys, and you break out of that city. And that's like the beginning of like where the game really begins.
So now I genuinely am not familiar with the storyline of the franchise since I've only done the MMORPG. Midgar, is that any influence from the Norse
Probably.
Midgard?
There's also Nibelheim, I think it's called. Nibelheim. Yeah, so
Okay.
yeah, they definitely take a little from that.
Fun.
And there's always some of the summons, they definitely relate to other
Grounded mythology, right?
mythology and pop culture, like Bahamut. There's
Who was on our top 10 Dragons in Gaming podcast.
That's
Get a little
right.
plug in for that one.
So yeah, it's just the vibe of the game itself. Like it's got like some steampunk with some futuristic. It's very unique. Like you can't
fun.
It really set a trend for its time.
Then I might wait to check out that one when it does come out.
So good. Yeah.
Now, on the other side of the Square Enix coin, another game that equally trended on Twitter, but for an opposite reason, was the Marvel Avengers game. That game was met with a lot of skepticism.
Vitriol.
Vitriol, yeah. I was putting it gently. Which is so interesting to see because on the one hand, yes, some of those character models are funky as hell. But on the flip side, so many people were saying this is not, because it's branded as Marvel's Avengers, people were expecting it to be 1-to-1 with the films. And we've just come to the end of Endgame, the Infinity Saga, the first 11 years in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Right.
And I think, and I want to wait to see more, but I have no qualms with a game that wants to step out from the shadow of the movies. And it is weird when you then put like new, like you can tell, like especially they want Tony Stark to be Robert Downey Jr., but he's not. But the voice acting cast is phenomenal. I mean, Laura Bailey's Black Widow, Travis Willingham is Thor, is Nolan North, was he Iron Man? Yeah.
Didn't you say it's like the Avengers of voice actors?
Yeah, it's basically the Avengers of voice actors. But one of the things that like I'm most excited about, because it does seem to be to end. We see like Mjolnir on the steps of Steve Rogers' memorial, and I bet we'll even get a nod because it's not straight from the movies; it's also from the comics. Maybe Steve Rogers is coming back. They wouldn't tease the biggest death of an Avenger if he doesn't come back in the story. But the biggest mystery for me that I'm excited about is we didn't find out who the voice in the trailer is when she's like, it's a young woman talking about A-Day and how the Avengers were set up to fail. But they name dropped Terrigen, and it's a young woman who was super like on the pulse of the Avengers. I have to wonder if it's going to be Kamala Khan, the new Miss Marvel, at which point would be a huge deal if they introduced her in a video game. Or maybe it was just some generic person or someone who works for the Daily Bugle or something. But like, I know that there's some visual elements, and we didn't really get clarification on what the gameplay was,
That's the
which
one
is
thing
weird.
I'm waiting for. Yeah, I mean, going off of what you're saying about expectations, we're coming off the MCU, climax of 10 years, and I think expecting it to be
a one-to-one
what Endgame was and
yeah.
how it ended, like you got to kind of step back a little bit. It's going to be a video game. You're going to control things that are happening. It's a totally different medium.
I think too, you have to look at what you're getting. Like, I don't know the exact number of how many characters are in it, but it's huge.
Oh yeah, they've already announced that, like, they've teased that Hawkeye will be showing up, and I think they teased Ant-Man. There's going to be DLC Avengers, and hell yeah, I'll pay out the nose for all my favorites, because one of the other big elements is you can do multiplayer co-op. Two of my dearest Marvel friends, Marvel fan friends, hit me up that night, and they're like, so you're going to play Thor, and I'm going to play Cap, and I'm going to be Black Widow, right? And I was like, hell yeah, we're going to squad up. And so
it's set already.
I do think that the nature of the trailer, like, it did want to present itself as sort of being cinematic, but not.
Yeah, I think they branded it a little too heavy towards that cinematic look when they could have maybe made it a little more stylized and separate itself a little bit better than what they did, because I think a lot of people were set up with that expectation. Yeah. And it's like, it's totally fine that they want to do something different from it. And
but it being Square Enix too, you do speaking on gameplay, you can't, not have RPG elements in it. Talking about Square Enix, I think they're going to bring that to adding skills or unlocking skills of some sorts.
Different costume changes and stuff like that. I'm
curious though. Yeah, I
think that game was extremely harshly dunked on, and it was a bit of an easy target compared to some other stuff that was announced.
It was announced that it was being made, I think, with the teaser trailer at E3 maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I think expectations were insanely high as every new Avengers movie came out.
Because that was around the time Infinity War was announced, I think.
Probably. Because I remember, because they were like, it's Crystal Dynamics, it's Project Avengers, here we go.
And they just didn't say, there was radio silence for years, and so I think people were just like really dying to see what it looked like, and maybe these expectations were going to be really hard to meet regardless of...
Yeah, and then when you look over at Insomniac and their Spider-Man game and you see just what a comic book character movie or video game can be, it was a little tough.
Yeah, right.
Now, speaking of movies and comics and blah, there were two people that had really surprise announcements. We've got Ubisoft, a game developer, going in with a TV show, and then we've got Netflix, a television platform, going in with video games. I don't really have a particular affinity for Dark Crystal, but I know that Dark Crystal is getting a top-down kind of turn-based looking game, and they're doing several Stranger Things projects, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
They did a mobile game earlier this year that was was it this? It was like right around the time for season 2, I guess, because season 3 is coming up. It was around
Stranger Things, right?
Yeah, and there were you could unlock clips from the show the more you played through it, and I had a great time until my phone for some reason deleted my save file, and I was like, oh man, you know how it goes. I was like, I'm free, but also but so there is a proven track record with Stranger Things narrative. And it was really cool. It was 8-bit style. All the characters did have their different skills because they're based on, like, the characters are kind of based on D&D classes. I mean, we got Lucas the Ranger. We got Lucas the Ranger.
In the basement.
And so we've got, and Mike's the Paladin. And so they all have different abilities. And so I think that's really cool that Netflix is
that's great.
taking some of those original because Netflix has so much now. They've really really pumped up their originals content.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then on the flip side, we got Ubisoft, who's going in for a dig at, it almost looks like a dig at Blizzard kind of deal. But I think at any point, any game developer who puts out a fantasy MMORPG is going to get compared to Warcraft.
Or just, it can be filmmakers and like artists that just have that ego. Like that's what it's all about. And it's funny because I'm not really a big fan of getting into like comedy series, but for some reason that trailer, I was like, I need to watch this.
Yeah.
What's the name of this series?
It's going to be called Mythic Quest Raven's Banquet, which is inspired by, because for those who don't know, there's an actual trailer out right now. It stars Rob McElhenney. Is that how you say it? McElhenney? McElhaney, from It's Always Sunny, co-created with Charlie Day and Megan Gans. And he's playing the creative director of a studio that is putting out the first expansion. So they rested on their laurels for Mythic Quest, this big Neverwinter Warcraft-style MMORPG. And this is the first time they are putting out an upgrade, the next kind of thing, and it's called Raven's Banquet.
Did you guys watch the trailer for
that? Sounds like
Yes.
I haven't. That sounds like a massive dig.
It's fabulous because it starts off as this like super cheesy trailer, and it's all
the animation is even like doofy.
Yeah, like transitions, like super, like these got the hero shot, like and it's all about the game director developer, I guess you call it. And then like it cuts back to the room, and it's like the marketing team. They're like, what was that?
Yeah.
It's so good.
Definitely a dick.
I mean, what's so funny is just a quick thing about Blizzard is that they're releasing in August, right? The World of Warcraft Classic.
Yeah.
And it just seems like,
Which I got
what type of time period are we living in?
I got a chance to play Classic at the last BlizzCon, and it was like, I'm like, what am I doing? Because they also just put out like Battle for Azeroth, and next year's, I think this year is 25th for Warcraft. So it's like,
wow.
Yeah. So it is pretty funny because you can go, well, it could be any game developer studio, but it is specifically about a studio who, this is the first time they're doing an expansion to their wildly popular game. But it looks hilarious. And other actors included are F. Murray Abraham, Imani Hakim, David Hornsby, Danny Pudi, and Ashley Birch from Hey Ash, What You Playing? Which I think it's fun. She's making Ashley Birch, and she's done a lot of voice acting, and she was on Critical Role and stuff. But
so many throwbacks.
I just think that it's funny and bizarre. It's going to be an Apple TV exclusive, which will be interesting to see how it goes. But man, I think it could be funny because there have been hit and misses with these types of shows because DC did their it's not Damage Control because that's Marvel. Powerless. They did their Powerless where it's like the insurance team that deals with the superheroes, and that didn't go so well. But like Silicon Valley, people to. So it depends
just
on.
Gonna refer to that.
Yeah, it depends on how seriously. And I'm sure it's not going to take itself seriously whatsoever.
Right.
It's It's Always Sunny team. But like
understanding what you're working with and just deconstructing that type of office environment.
Yeah, and making it palatable for people who aren't into games, but enough for people who are to go, haha, ooh, that's too real.
So with these companies, crossing over mediums, does this mean Kojima will finally make a film?
I'm sorry, was the 10-minute trailer for Death Stranding not a film?
Arguably, he's been making films for like 15 years. You can just press X and circle every once in a while.
Does this open the door for crossing over?
I think Kojima's kind of hit a point where if he were to do a film, that's a step backward. Like him doing what he's been doing for gaming in general and like kind of making it into a medium that is being looked at more as like an art form or like a creative atmosphere where you can like do a lot more than movies kind of let you do. Like that's something that the gaming industry needs. Like you can see
it's on its own, though.
everybody is using Phantom Pain or Ground Zeroes as like it's present in a lot of games now where it's like they're using those two and what he does in general as just kind of a basis for how they craft story or how they like run thematic elements through everything or how they make cutscenes more engaging. Like,
I'm just more curious on how he would make a film, not necessarily directly adapting because it is totally different.
Yeah, because I was going to say also there's such a stigma of the idea of a video game film. But it is really cool. So will some games get turned into Netflix films or movies or shows. Films and movies are the same thing. Shows. Because The Witcher is getting turned into a Netflix series. And I know that's also a novel series, but it's probably mostly inspired by
the success
of the games. And so, yeah, it's really cool because so often we just expect these to be, what's the next console that I'm going to have to shell out for? What's the next cool 3D or VR feature that they're going to introduce? But to see some of these companies starting to take strides and go, okay, we're going to turn our originals into video games, or we're going to turn we're going to lambast video games in an original television series on a streaming platform. I think there's some really smart ways to do that, and I think it's pretty cool to see.
It's very cool because for the longest time we had to rely on, all right, this video game's getting a movie, but it's going to be directed by a certain German director that, like, yeah.
Cool. I was going to say, Monster Hunter World is getting a movie, and I think it's got the Resident Evil alums attached to it. Yes. Okay. I'm pretty sure Mila Jovovich is going to be in it, but I haven't seen too many details about it.
Or how about, real quick, prequel of Uncharted with Tom Holland?
Yeah, Nathan Drake. Baby
Tom
treasure
Holland
hunter.
is Nathan Drake.
Oh, it's okay.
The Uncharted movie, I mean, quick sidetrack. The Uncharted movie that everyone's been talking about for so long that was in development is actually, prequel.
Man.
Tom Holland. When they announced him, I didn't know it was a prequel, so I was like, wait, what? And I read it, I was like, it's a prequel. I was like, okay.
Is this like when he goes to Indiana Jones school? Like before he does any, spelunking?
Did you play 4? Did you play 4?
I did not.
4?
I didn't, no.
I mean, they touched on his childhood a little bit, like thievery and stuff like that.
Interesting.
So,
yeah.
Okay.
Then there's also the problem of when it's like, we're adapting this video, like Tomb Raider, people go, but I expect it to be the plot of this thing. But it's like, but if you want the plot of that thing, it's already been played out. So it is interesting because I know prequels have such an odious kind of response from fans, but no, I think that could be really interesting. And then we've got jumping all the way back to our earlier discussion of like letting people have their time not to crunch things. We got Sonic the Hedgehog coming up, but they've given the arts team a little more time to revamp. I'm sure we could do our whole own podcast on Sonic, but now it's the perfect Valentine's Day film for 2020 because I think it's coming out like right around Valentine's Day. So take your date. Gotta go fast.
Deadpool or Sonic? Which one was the best Valentine's Day movie?
Oh my goodness. But yeah, there were a lot of other projects. I mean, I didn't pull up a ton of details about it, but one that I'm looking forward to is the Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order.
Yes.
Because I mean, I love Battlefront 2, but that one mostly for the experience I can have with friends, and I'm like, I want a solo experience. I want to be the Jedi.
I want a story.
So is Respawn
the Jedi?
Yes, Respawn, who did Titanfall, which I haven't played 2, but I've heard nothing but great things about Titanfall 2's campaign.
Well, they also did Apex, right?
And they did Apex, which is like my favorite game right now, which is a whole other subject.
I was going to say, there were some Apex news at the convention, right?
There was. We can cover that now real quick. Well, funny, today, like I said, I played this morning, but there was an update at 11. Dragons have arrived on the BR map. Yeah. Dragons.
Just casually.
Just dragons.
So how did that relate to the teaser trailer?
So the trailer, at the end, you just see a giant dragon's eye. It fills up the whole frame. It's a dragon's eye, and you see a legend, which is what the characters are called, flying, like skydiving next to it, and you see little like baby dragons kind of flying along.
Aww.
But yeah, the update today, dragons just randomly started appearing, and they're carrying loot boxes of friends on your playlist, or your friends list, sorry. And yes, you shoot down the dragons and take the loot. But there's going to be a bigger event. Like Fortnite does these crazy in-game events.
Yeah,
it's like a 2-week thing.
So it's a 2-week break, and they're teasing what's going to happen. The big dragon's going to show up somewhere and do something to the map and change the dynamic for everything.
I also love that with the digitization and putting games online, the fact that developers can add updates. I think the one that I most notice it in is Overwatch, when they're about ready to introduce a new character or a new map. How something cosmetically will change, and people are so fast to find these story tidbits. And I think that's so cool. I mean, because before the internet and or the online version of these games, there was such a singular, like, you had the game, it was done, you played it in your kind of cut off realm, and while you could do like one of my favorites is the old Game Boy Color link up where you had to sit next to the person to trade Pokemon, but like now I can like battle with people across the world and stuff.
Yeah.
I just think that's super cool. But I'm looking forward to the Jedi because I think a Star Wars story-based game is needed, especially in a time where I won't go into it, but so many people are finding themselves increasingly disenchanted with the way that certain Star Wars stories are going.
Right. And it's been so long since you've gotten a third-party action game where you could play in a Star Wars universe.
Yeah.
The last few games have all been, I think, Battlefront, which are first-person shooters, more or less. And I think it's been since, like, The Force Unleashed that there's been any game that even played like that. And I don't think Respawn has much experience doing that type of game, so it'll be really interesting to see how they approach it.
It looks like, and I'm hoping they're taking cues from the gameplay and the combat and like kind of like the cinematic stuff they're doing from God of War combat, which would be awesome because that new God of War game was
heard nothing but good things about that one.
The combat was pretty sweet. You get those really cool angles when you're doing these like finishing moves and stuff like that.
Yeah,
to get like some cool like complicated skill tree going on like they had. That would be really cool.
Yeah, they're gonna have that.
One last thing just about Star Wars. I thought the most interesting thing about the trailer was the fact that they had Saw Gerrera in it.
Yeah,
which I'm like, oh, I recognize him.
Where's Bor Gullet?
Saw Gerrera. He's the guy who talks like this. Like,
so this
Forrest
Rogue
Whitaker,
One,
my man.
in Rogue One. So I'm like, oh, this takes place before Rogue One. Oh, it's going to defeat directly. Like, I really like Rogue One.
That's pretty sweet,
So I'm like,
that it all fits into the plot, and it's like it kind of reminds me of what you were talking about earlier, where it's like movies are going into games, games are going into movies.
Yeah.
It's like games are being treated as a proper another form of media now.
Yeah, and you can have those touchstone moments where you go, boom, I recognize that guy from the movie, so I can place myself where this is in the universe, but I am running my own story and it's adjacent, and so you're like, oh, but now there's the rebels are doing this, or like you just have that, because it is a very viable storytelling medium.
Yeah, and it's like earlier, it's you're active in it, and so it's like you were part of that leading up to what happened in Rogue One. Like that's super cool.
So real quick, speculation: do you think Obi-Wan will show up in the game?
Oh, maybe. That'd be...
He kind of has to, right?
That would be...
It's all about, like, because he's the only Jedi, there has to be...
Did they tease Maul? Or was that something else?
That was Solo.
Okay.
But that would be interesting if they brought Obi-Wan into it.
Yeah.
That would be pretty cool.
Yeah. I mean, there's if Saw Gerrera can show up, there's no telling who they might also add.
Turns out I was best friends with Obi-Wan.
Just pull out his Rolodex and call him up. So one of the things we kind of alluded to Cyberpunk earlier, but we didn't. Another place where it is getting interesting is the celebrity spokesperson. I mean, gaming is also really cool.
Yeah. Also for a moment, mentioning Kojima again, it's very interesting that he chose a whole cast for his new game that's going to come out, Death Stranding, with pretty much all celebrity casts, and you're starting to see that more and more and more.
Yeah, like for me, Detroit Become Human kept throwing me because I'm like, I know who all these actors are, but I have to believe that they're robots. But yeah, like Kojima has a weird fascination with Mads Mikkelsen and Norman Reedus.
A totally normal fascination with Mads Mikkelsen.
Yes. But Cyberpunk's big gotcha moment at E3 was Keanu Reeves, because it's his world and we're all just living in it right now.
The crazy robot arm.
But that one also looks like a really cool game for customization and character choice in the narrative, but I know a lot of people who are like, Keanu is the selling point now.
I'm keeping my expectations, just getting out front. I'm keeping my expectations so low because I don't want to get so hyped. I know the game's probably going to be great, but I do not want to get overhyped and have it be like another Watch Dogs or... Because, man, it happens too many times. So I'm just like, it looks cool. Keanu's in it. Cool.
I mean, the potential sounds great. The whole the environment looks awesome. The environment's very reminiscent of
character design. It's
William
cool
Gibson vibes.
Yeah. So the thing with Cyberpunk, did any of you guys ever play the tabletop RPG, or did you even know that there's
the Cyberpunk RPG? Yeah.
No.
So according to the people that are developing this game / overseeing it, directing it, whatnot, this game 2077 is actually a direct sequel to the tabletop RPG.
Really?
Like that had a whole established canon and everything.
Oh yeah, it's insane. And for that one, like character creation, you go to tables and you roll like D20s, and you get like every what's your addiction as who you're, what's your job? Are you like, what kind of punk are you? Like it's just are you a cyberpunk? But there's like you basically you build a character from birth to the moment that you start playing.
Wow.
So you go all the way back to like genetics, which is super cool.
They're keeping elements of that in this game as well, which is
cool.
really cool.
That's going to be some deep character customization.
Keanu Reeves' character is actually this is from what I've like kind of glanced over, but he is based on the character Johnny Silverhand, who was essentially the main character of the original tabletop RPG. And 2077 takes place 55 years after his character passed away in 2022. So he shows up in the trailer, and this is something.
Maybe he's Johnny Mnemonic now. I don't know.
Like, he shows up in the trailer, and they're like, "Well, that's obviously not Johnny Silverhand because he's dead." But could be some kind of like a ghost representation, like a mind
I was going to say,
or something.
One of my things about cyberpunk as a genre and sci-fi, and I did a whole study on like AI and this kind of stuff in fiction, is in the world of cyberpunk where you yourself become physical data, are you ever really dead? Not necessarily, because they can infinitely find ways to put the information that used to be, like, you are code now, and that code that is you can be infinitely permutated into different forms.
Code kind of takes the place of or adds on to the idea of DNA.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And then what's the value of that in that world?
That's always the big question in cyberpunk.
That's like a lot of like politically charged questions that I think we're all kind of asking ourselves right now, especially with body modification and all that stuff that they're handling in this game.
That's all in this game too.
They're bringing it face forward, and with the graphics and the world, and there's a lot of potential there. It's just...
Read some cyberpunk genre. It's so good. It's so good. Like, just coming off a Neuromancer and seeing all this, I'm like, Cyberpunk Central. Oh,
so that'll be really exciting. And there are hundreds of other things that we didn't really get to touch on here, but I think we've covered a really big run of kind of the biggest stuff. So like I said at the beginning is there any last shout outs you want to do before we go to the last question?
I'm disappointed we didn't cover Mario and Sonic at the Summer Olympics 2020. Especially because you could see pretty much every character in that game barefoot or shirtless, and it's really cool.
And that's what the players really want.
Eggman barefoot is frightening.
For me, Final Fantasy XIV Shadowbringers, that's a game these past few months I keep looking at and I'm like, I should really resub and play that game, because it's a monthly subscription game. It's for a Final Fantasy game, it's absolutely one of my favorites. Like the gap between that and my second favorite is like so big. It's such a good game. I was showing you too, like they take older bosses from like the older games like 6 and 5 and 4, and they make them full-fledged like raid bosses where it's like you and 10 other people fighting these guys in these different scenarios and it's so good.
It's pretty epic. Like,
check out the trailer for that. Give it love. I love that series. I love that game.
Nice.
The only couple other games that we didn't get to talk about that I'm excited for are Trials of Mana, which is a sequel to Secret of Mana, which never was released in the U.S. And I was a huge fan of Secret of Mana back in the day. The music and everything is so amazing. The other one,
I'm very excited to pick that up too. Not being able to play that whole series, and then they're finally releasing that third one.
Well, especially after the remake.
Seiken Densetsu, I think it's called.
Yes.
They're finally releasing it out west. I could get to play all three.
Yeah, and the remake of Secret of Mana didn't really do it for me. Like this, I didn't really like the art.
It didn't do it for a lot of people.
But Trials of Mana, the art looks amazing. And then the other one, which wasn't really E3, kind of, was Baldur's Gate 3.
Hell yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Hell yeah. That one came out just before, so we didn't quite include it on the list. But I mean,
that's our then.
That's our then. That was the only thing we knew about before this convention was Baldur's Gate, and now look at all that we know. It is. I mean, game news is popping it all the time, but there's just so much. I'm really excited about that one. That one was another social media explosion. Yeah. But as we wrap it up here, and I'll posit this question to the audience as well, because we'd love to hear your thoughts. Next year is E3 25. What would be your number one wish list announcement? And it doesn't have to be, like 25 is just a cool number for the game, but what would be your dream announcement from any publisher at E3 2020?
I mean, I have mine ready to go.
Go for it.
With how Final Fantasy VII Remake is looking, I have to say Final Fantasy VI Remake.
That'd be sick.
All right.
Yeah. It'd be very interesting to see what approach they decide to take with that, too.
Yeah.
That would be cool. That's actually one on my playlist. I'm probably going to play that next.
Yeah.
What's yours?
It's very unlikely, but because they're doing a lot of remakes, not just Nintendo, but everybody, and then there's that Trial of Mana, or the Collection of Mana, actually, where they're bringing all three to the States. I'd really like a Mother collection, where it has Mother 1, Earthbound, or Mother 2, and Mother 3. Finally also brought to the West. That game was came out, I think, in 2006, and just have it all in one pack. Everyone just keeps speculating about it online, and it's like, I think that's like the one thing I would really like.
My thing is just a remaster of Chrono Trigger or Chrono Cross.
Chrono Cross.
That's an underrated game.
Yeah. So the funny thing with me, I've never played Final Fantasy VII ever. The game that I played in lieu of Final Fantasy VII was Chrono Cross.
Okay.
So I am deeply in love with that game. I have just gotten around to playing Chrono Trigger. I'm so weird with how I play these games, I know. But I've been playing Chrono Trigger and I'm like, I love this just as much as Chrono Cross. And yeah, I would love to see those remastered in the way of 7 or remaster, remade, what have you. Yes, those are my two.
Real quick, the combat style of Chrono Trigger is actually very similar to how the style is in a remake, 7 remake, where it's kind of action. It's active based, and you can kind of pause and make decisions. If I can recall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah. Yeah, it is.
That'd be perfect.
All right, and then mine, going back to what we talked about, Nintendo doing the Link's Awakening. My dream would be a complete edition, remaster, re-edition, remake with the new engine of Legend of Zelda, the Oracle of Seasons and the Oracle of Ages. Those were my absolute favorite Game Boy Color games. Total black sheep of the series. I tend to gravitate toward, Super Mario Sunshine was a super bizarre, not really talked about game, but I loved it. But the Oracle's games, if they smashed them both into one edition, did it with the new Link's Awakening style, I would probably die. And they could, because it has to do with the Oracles and Din was Seasons and Nehru was Ages, and they could just smash them into one furore kind of complete edition. And I would love that because the games actually did have crossover in the Game Boy Color, but I didn't have a friend who had the other version, so I couldn't sit there with our 6-inch cable. You had to sit hip to hip. All right, this is technology.
I had a friend who had both on 2 different Game Boys linked up, and he would just play them in 2 separate.
Oh my god!
Oh my gosh!
He's living in Cyberpunk 2023.
The 4-year-old dudes that have 60 phones and play Pokemon Go. Right?
Yeah, but please, Nintendo, I'm putting that energy out into the universe. Give me the Oracle's remakes, please.
And you would like that in the Link's Awakening style, or is there maybe another art style that?
I don't know. But I would love it. If they're going in that vein and doing the Game Boy games, I would love that one so much. So I think that just about does it for us for E3 this year, but hopefully we can maybe make our way down to E3 25, because that one I'm sure just for the sheer pageantry of it, people are going to
People are going to knock the house down.
Bring out the big guns.
All new hardware, 25th anniversaries of things, just everybody's going to have an anniversary. It's going to be a massive party. And
the event itself, it's we don't really get to see it because we watch the conferences and do a lot of the live stream end of it. But when you go to the event, it's a whole different thing. It's going to Disneyland, but for video games. Every booth is themed. It's totally decked out. Just super quick, Nintendo had one for Luigi's Mansion. Fortnite was there with a huge presence. They had the whole battle bus and all these areas where you could dance and get free merch. Everybody comes out in their A game, and it's just a blast just to walk around and try new things.
I'd be so overwhelmed I wouldn't know what to do.
It is very overwhelming.
Just drop me off at a demo and I'll play for 3 hours.
It is mad sensory overload, I'll be honest, but it is such a blast.
I'm so down.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for joining me today, because that was E3 Then and Now.
Thank you, Kitty.
How are you going to level up your gaming after this year's E3? This is just one of many exciting checkpoints in the world of electronic entertainment, and we can't wait to see what amazing upgrades continue to roll out for all of our favorite consoles and what new adventures remain to be seen in the digital universe. Be sure to visit our blog and let us know what E3 announcements you are most excited to see, and tell us what you're playing now. Email us with your thoughts at podcast@sideshow.com. Thank you for joining us. This has been E3 2019, Then and Now. Do you enjoy listening to Then and Now? We are proud to bring you pop culture content completely ad-free, but that doesn't mean we don't need your support to help keep us going. Please take a moment to leave a 5-star review on iTunes, Spotify, or your favorite podcasting platform and help spread the word about our podcast. We welcome fan feedback. Email us at podcasts@sideshow.com with your thoughts and suggestions for how we can make our shows even better. Plus, tune in for our full network of pop culture podcasts. See if your fan favorites make the cut in the Geek Culture Countdown, a bi-weekly podcast featuring pop culture top 10 lists. Hear exclusive interviews with celebrities and pop culture industry leaders as they led their Geek Side show in Look Who Showed Up. Join comedian Jeff May and his special guests as they discuss anything and everything in Sideshow's Sideshow. Then get all the latest pop culture news with our daily briefing, a 2-minute breakdown of the biggest geek headlines perfect for your Alexa or Google News briefings. We wouldn't exist without your continued support. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to let your geek side show.